You know that feeling when your well just runs dry? That's exactly where I was, stuck in a creative desert. My piano sat silent. The lyrics I'd scrawled looked like gibberish, and every melody I tried to coax from my guitar just died. For weeks, the muse had packed her bags and left town, leaving me with a head full of static and a heart full of frustration. Being a singer-songwriter is my whole world, but without that spark, I felt like a deflated balloon, just drifting. One particularly gray evening, the kind where even the sky feels tired, I decided I couldn't face my apartment or my stubbornly blank notebooks a moment longer. I just needed to get out, walk until my thoughts untangled, or at least until the city noise drowned them out. I ended up on a street I didn't usually frequent, and the soft glow spilling from a restaurant I'd never noticed before caught my eye. It looked inviting, dimly lit with a promise of quiet anonymity, so I pushed open the heavy oak door. Inside, the air was warm, smelling faintly of roasted herbs and aged wood. Glasses clinked softly, hushed conversations drifted like smoke, and a low, melodic murmur filled the space. It wasn't a bustling kind of place, more like a sanctuary from the outside world. I found a small table tucked away in a corner, content to just sip my tea and blend in. Then, the music started. Not background elevator music, but something real, alive. A violin. It sliced through the quiet hum of the restaurant, a singular, clear voice that resonated deep in my chest. It was rich, mournful, then suddenly joyful, weaving a tapestry of sound that had me putting down my teacup and turning my head. And there she was. She stood near a small, raised platform, bathed in the soft, golden glow of a strategically placed spotlight. Her posture was elegant, confident, yet entirely unpretentious. Her dark hair, a deep espresso shade, cascaded around her shoulders, catching the light as she moved. She wasn't just playing, she was one with the instrument. Her head tilted slightly, her eyes, deep pools of brown, were focused intently on the strings, yet somehow seemed to hold the entire room in their gaze. The way her fingers danced, precise and graceful, across the fingerboard, the fluid motion of her bow arm, it was mesmerizing. She wore a simple, fitted dress that seemed to accentuate the confident curve of her shoulders and the strength in her arms. There was an understated beauty about her, a quiet intensity that drew me in, held me captive. The notes flowed effortlessly from her violin, each one a brushstroke painting emotions I hadn't realized I was missing. It wasn't just technically brilliant, it was profoundly soulful. As I watched her, really saw her, something shifted inside me. It wasn't a loud epiphany, but a quiet, almost imperceptible stir, like the first signs of life after a long winter. The static in my head began to dissipate, replaced by a nascent hum, a forgotten rhythm. It was a faint whisper of inspiration, a feeling I hadn't known in months, and it was entirely because of her and the beautiful, honest music pouring from her soul. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt a flicker of hope that the well wasn't dry after all. Maybe, just maybe, this captivating violinist held a key. That night, the memory of her music, and of her, Marilyn, clung to me like a sweet perfume. It wasn't just a fleeting impression, it was a persistent hum beneath the surface of my thoughts, a quiet, insistent melody that had finally broken through my creative paralysis. My apartment, which had felt like a suffocating cage for so long, now seemed a little lighter, tinged with the possibility of new sounds. The next few evenings found me drawn back to that restaurant. I didn't sit at the same table, though. I found a new spot, a little further back, where I could observe her without feeling like I was intruding. I became a silent student of her performance. I watched the way her brow subtly furrowed in concentration during a particularly intricate passage, the faint smile that would touch her lips when she hit a perfect, resonant note. I noticed the way the lamplight highlighted the elegant curve of her neck as she played, the delicate strength in her hands as they gripped the instrument. Her dark hair, sometimes pinned up, sometimes flowing freely, seemed to move with the rhythm of her bowing. Every detail, every nuance of her presence seemed to imprint itself onto my mind, chipping away at the creative wall I'd built around myself. Her playing wasn't just beautiful, it was profound, filled with an emotional honesty that stirred something deep within me, something I desperately wanted to tap into. The inspiration continued to build, a subtle crescendo in my own internal landscape. I started humming again, faint, half-formed ideas trickling into my mind. I could almost hear how her violin might weave through my nascent melodies. It felt like she held a key, not just to unlocking my creativity, but to something more, something undefined but powerful. After her final set on the fourth evening, my heart was thrumming a frantic rhythm. It was now or never. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the faint flutter in my hands, and pushed myself up from my chair. Walking towards her felt like traversing a vast, empty space, every step amplified. She was carefully placing her violin back into its case, her movements precise and deliberate. She looked up as I approached, her dark eyes, which had held such intense focus minutes ago, now held a polite, curious gaze. "Excuse me," I began, my voice a little shakier than I would have liked. "I just wanted to tell you how incredible your playing is. Truly." A small, genuine smile touched her lips. "Thank you. That's kind of you to say." Her voice was soft, with a gentle warmth, exactly as I imagined it would be. "I'm Valerie," I continued, feeling a blush creep up my neck. "I'm a singer-songwriter, or I try to be. I've been struggling with some serious writer's block lately, and, well, your music has been the first thing in months that's actually stirred something in me. It's been profoundly inspiring." I watched her face for any sign of dismissal, but her expression remained attentive, a flicker of something intriguing in her eyes. "That's wonderful to hear, Valerie," she replied, her gaze steady. "Music has a way of finding its path, doesn't it?" Emboldened by her gentle response, I took another breath. "It does. And yours, it's extraordinary. I know this might sound a little out there, but I was wondering if you'd ever consider collaborating? I have a few lyrical fragments, some half-formed melodies, and I can hear your violin in them. I think we could create something really special." The words tumbled out, earnest, and perhaps a little too eager. I felt entirely exposed, offering up my deepest vulnerability to a beautiful stranger. Marilyn listened, her head tilted slightly, her gaze thoughtful. A hint of a smile played on her lips, but there was also a subtle hesitation in her eyes, a moment of consideration before she spoke. "A collaboration, you say? That's an interesting proposition." She paused, her eyes searching mine, as if weighing my sincerity. "I'd be open to discussing it. It's not something I usually do, but your passion is clear." She reached for a small card from her case. "Here's my number. Text me, and we can figure out a time to talk more properly." I took the card, my fingers brushing hers for a brief moment. Her skin was cool, smooth. "Thank you, Marilyn. Really, it means a lot." As she turned back to finish packing her violin, a mix of elation and a familiar pang of uncertainty settled over me. She hadn't said no, but that subtle hesitation, it lingered. Still, I had taken a step, extended a hand, and for the first time in what felt like forever, the silence in my creative world didn't feel quite so absolute. The small card with Marilyn's number felt like a precious artifact in my hand. For days, it sat on my bedside table, then on my desk, then tucked into the pocket of my jeans. Each time I touched it, I felt a flutter of anticipation, mingled with the usual anxieties that plagued my creative process. What if I wasn't good enough? What if her hesitation was a polite brush-off? My mind, ever a relentless loop of what-ifs, went into overdrive. I busied myself in my home studio, picking at old melodies, trying to channel the quiet hum of inspiration Marilyn had awakened, but the blank pages still seemed to mock me. The memory of her music, however, was a persistent, quiet force, a gentle current pulling me forward. Then, a text message arrived. My phone vibrated on the counter, and when I saw her name, my breath hitched. A simple, polite inquiry about meeting for coffee. My fingers moved slightly unsteadily as I typed out a reply, suggesting a small, independent coffee shop nestled a few blocks from my apartment, a neutral ground, far from the spotlight of the restaurant. The morning of our meeting was crisp and bright. I arrived a little early, my heart doing a nervous little tap dance against my ribs. I chose a table near the window, watching the street, my tea already growing lukewarm. When she walked in, the entire atmosphere of the small shop seemed to shift, subtly, imperceptibly. She wasn't wearing her performance attire. Today, she was in a soft, tailored jacket and dark jeans, her hair pulled back in a loose, elegant ponytail. She radiated an effortless grace. When she saw me, her smile was genuine, warmer than the polite one she'd given me at the restaurant. "Valerie," she greeted, her voice a calm counterpoint to my internal flutter. "Marilyn. Thanks for coming." We settled into easy conversation, navigating the initial awkwardness with a surprising amount of grace. I found Marilyn to be incredibly articulate, thoughtful, and possessing a subtle wit that made me laugh a few times, a genuine, unforced laugh that felt good to release. She spoke about her journey with the violin, the years of practice, the joy and discipline it demanded. Her eyes, which held such intensity on stage, now sparkled with a gentle enthusiasm when she recounted stories of discovering new pieces of music or the challenge of mastering a complex technique. I noticed a faint dusting of freckles across the bridge of her nose, visible in the bright morning light, and the way she would occasionally tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. In turn, I found myself opening up to her, sharing the frustrations of my writer's block, the vulnerability I felt when my words wouldn't come. Marilyn listened intently, her gaze unwavering, making me feel heard in a way few people ever had. She asked insightful questions, demonstrating a deeper understanding of the creative process than I'd anticipated. "It sounds like you're searching for something more than just a melody, Valerie," she observed, sipping her coffee. "Sometimes, the quietest moments are when the truest inspiration surfaces." Her observation struck a chord. She saw past the surface, recognized the deeper yearning beneath my creative struggles. As we talked, the differences between us, my introspection and her more outwardly expressive nature through music, my quiet intensity versus her calm confidence, began to feel less like barriers and more like intriguing counterpoints. We found common ground in our shared passion for music, our dedication to our craft, and a surprising alignment in our artistic sensibilities. A comfortable rhythm began to form between us, punctuated by shared insights and even a few moments of playful banter. She recounted a funny anecdote about a particularly stubborn conductor, and I shared a tale of a disastrous open mic night. Laughter, light and genuine, filled the space between us. By the time we finished our coffees, the initial formality had dissolved, leaving behind the nascent warmth of a budding friendship. Marilyn seemed intrigued by my intensity, my quiet passion, and I, in turn, was captivated by her poise, her intelligence, and the quiet depth that lay beneath her confident exterior. The threads of connection, once fragile, were slowly but surely beginning to unfurl. Our collaboration officially began the following week. I'd spent days tidying my home studio, usually a chaotic mess of notebooks and instruments, trying to make it presentable. The space, which had been a suffocating chamber of frustration for so long, now hummed with a nervous, yet exhilarating, new energy. I was equal parts terrified and thrilled. Marilyn arrived precisely on time, her violin case clutched in one hand. She surveyed the studio with a quiet appreciation, her eyes taking in the acoustic panels and the scattered sheet music. "Nice space, Valerie," she commented, a small smile playing on her lips. "Thanks. It's usually messy, eh?" I admitted, feeling a familiar flush creep up my neck. We started tentatively. I shared my lyrical fragments, some barely more than whispered ideas, others half-formed melodies on my acoustic guitar. I watched Marilyn's face intently as she listened, trying to gauge her reaction. She absorbed every note, every word, her expression thoughtful and discerning. Then, she picked up her violin, her movements fluid and practiced, and began to improvise. It was magic. Her violin didn't just play along. It conversed with my melodies, adding layers of emotion and complexity I hadn't even imagined. Her musical counterpoints were insightful, often taking my simple ideas and elevating them into something profoundly moving. There were moments when my impulsive bursts of lyrical inspiration clashed subtly with her meticulous, classical structure, a minor friction that was quickly smoothed over as we learned to anticipate each other's creative rhythms. We began to find a beautiful synergy, a dance between my raw, emotional songwriting and her refined, expressive violin. As the hours turned into days, and days into weeks, our studio sessions became a sanctuary. We spent long afternoons together, composing, rehearsing, and experimenting, the air thick with the scent of wood and rosin, and the heady aroma of creativity. An unspoken current began to flow between us, subtle yet undeniable. I found myself observing Marilyn more closely, noticing the small, endearing habits she had, the way she would tap her bow lightly against her chin when deep in thought, the quiet hum she made when a melody truly resonated with her, the way she would absently trace patterns on the sheet music with her finger. Her presence filled the room, a vibrant, steady force that grounded me. There were moments of shared laughter, often sparked by a missed note or a particularly clumsy lyrical attempt of mine, our voices mingling in the small space. There was also intense eye contact, sustained glances over a complex musical passage that spoke volumes without needing a single word. And then there was the gentle awareness of proximity. We would lean in close to discuss a chord progression, her hand sometimes brushing mine as she pointed to a note on the score, or her elbow would accidentally graze mine as we reached for the same pencil. Each touch, however fleeting, brought a soft warmth. My internal world, once trapped in the emptiness of writer's block, now felt anchored by Marilyn's quiet presence, her proximity sparking an undefined sense of wonder I hadn't known in months. A blush often crept onto my cheeks during these close moments, a subtle betrayal of the growing, undefined emotions swirling within me. I'd pretend to cough or adjust my guitar, anything to deflect from the sudden heat I felt. The music we created together, piece by piece, slowly transformed into a reflection of our deepening, ambiguous connection, a harmony that spoke of more than just notes and lyrics, a quiet language of two souls intertwining. It was a melody of unspoken care, a rhythm of burgeoning feelings, subtly yet powerfully present in every note we played. The composition began to truly take shape, growing from fragments into a cohesive, poignant piece. The studio, once a place of solitary struggle, was now a vibrant crucible where our individual expressions melded, creating something profoundly new and entirely ours. Each passing day, I felt my emotional landscape shifting. My initial admiration for Marilyn had deepened, evolving into something far more complex, more intimate than I had ever anticipated. Her presence had become essential, a steady beat in the rhythm of my days. One particularly late evening, we were both exhausted but exhilarated. We just had a breakthrough on the bridge of our song, a cascade of notes and words that finally clicked into place. The air in the studio still hummed with the echoes of our music, but now a comfortable silence settled between us. The city outside was quiet, the only sound the software of my computer and the gentle rustle of papers as Marilyn meticulously packed away her violin. My heart beat a little faster as I watched her, bathed in the soft, warm glow of the studio lamp. The light caught the delicate curve of her neck, the graceful line of her arm as she carefully placed her bow in its case. Her movements were always so composed, so deliberate. A feeling of profound vulnerability washed over me, a fear of risking this precious connection we had built, yet an overwhelming desire to deepen it. It was a terrifying, exhilarating precipice. "That was incredible tonight, Marilyn," I said, my voice softer than I intended, breaking the comfortable silence. She looked up, her dark eyes meeting mine. They held a warmth, a shared understanding that needed no words. It was Valerie. "It feels like we finally found its heart." She closed her violin case with a soft click and then turned fully towards me. "You know," she began, her voice taking on a slightly different tone, more reflective. There was a time years ago when I almost gave up. A performance that went terribly wrong, a critique that was brutal. It silenced me for a while. It's hard to trust your own artistry again after that. She offered a quiet, almost imperceptible shrug, a rare glimpse into a past vulnerability. Her words resonated deeply, echoing my own recent struggles with writer's block. It was a shared, tender space, a moment of rare, unprompted intimacy from someone so often composed. I understand that feeling, I admitted, my chest tight with a mix of empathy and a yearning to offer comfort. It feels like your own voice betrays you. Exactly, she murmured, her gaze holding mine. The air hummed with unspoken emotions, the weight of our shared artistic struggles, and the burgeoning feelings that had intertwined with our music. In that shared, tender space, the unspoken became almost tangible, a palpable energy drawing us closer. My heart pounded, a frantic drum against my ribs. I felt a profound sense of emotional care for Marilyn, an intense connection that transcended words, a quiet merging of souls that found its truest expression in the melodies we crafted. My hand, almost without conscious thought, reached out, hovering for a moment, then gently rested on her arm. Her skin was warm beneath my touch. Marilyn's eyes widened almost imperceptibly, and her breath hitched, a faint, soft sound in the quiet room. In a moment of pure, overwhelming feeling, driven by the sheer weight of our burgeoning emotions, not by conscious intent, I leaned in. Our lips met in a clumsy, hesitant kiss, a brief, gentle touch, a tentative exploration. It was awkward, innocent, yet bright with meaning. The world seemed to hold its breath for that single, profound instant. Then, I pulled back, my heart pounding, my face burning, leaving us both in a stunned, suspended silence. The kiss hung in the air, a silent, powerful chord that had reverberated through the quiet studio. My face was still burning, a wave of embarrassment and exhilaration washing over me simultaneously. I couldn't bring myself to look at Marilyn directly, my gaze fixed on the intricate patterns of the rug beneath my feet. An initial awkwardness, thick and palpable, settled between us, a delicate tension that threatened to unravel everything we had built. Then a soft sound. Marilyn cleared her throat, and I finally dared to lift my eyes. Her expression was unreadable at first, a mixture of surprise, yes, but also a quiet thoughtfulness. There was no anger, no repulsion, only a profound stillness. Our eyes met, and in that gaze, something shifted. The awkwardness didn't vanish entirely, but it began to dissipate, replaced by a profound sense of understanding, a quiet affirmation that needed no words. It was as if the kiss had peeled back a layer, revealing an unspoken truth that had been simmering beneath the surface. Our creative sessions continued, but everything felt subtly altered. The studio air, once charged with creative energy, now also hummed with a different kind of awareness. Our eyes met more often, holding a new depth of shared emotion, a silent communication passing between us that felt both thrilling and terrifying. We'd catch each other staring, a quick blush rising to my cheeks, sometimes to hers too, before we'd both pretend to focus intently on the sheet music. Our relationship, both personal and creative, deepened further. I found myself more open, more vulnerable with Marilyn, sharing not just my musical ideas, but also my deeper anxieties and hopes. I felt an inexplicable trust blossoming, a comfort in her presence that allowed me to shed some of my usual guard. Marilyn, in turn, seemed to lean into my quiet strength, sharing more about her life outside of music, her dreams, and her quiet observations about the world. Her confidence was still there, but now I saw a beautiful softness beneath it, a gentle vulnerability that drew me in even more. We continued to pour our hearts into our music, the composition becoming a living, breathing entity infused with the tender, unfolding emotions between us. The lyrics I wrote were now imbued with a newfound clarity, a vulnerability inspired by our connection. Marilyn's violin, previously a voice of general emotion, now spoke specifically of longing, of comfort, of the delicate dance between two souls discovering each other. I discovered a profound, if sometimes overwhelming, sense of emotional care for Marilyn. It wasn't a loud, aggressive fire, but a deep, steady warmth that permeated my being. It was an intense connection that transcended words, a shared vulnerability that wove itself into the very fabric of our collaborative process. It was a quiet merging of souls, a gentle unfolding of hearts that found its truest, most poignant expression in the melodies we crafted together. Our piece was no longer just a song, it was our story, set to music. This shared, intense emotional connection fueled our work, bringing our musical piece to a poignant completion. Every note, every harmony, every silence in the score now held the resonance of our journey, a testament to the quiet, powerful care that was blooming between us, delicate and real. The completed piece stood as a testament to our journey, a symphony of our intertwined hearts. It felt like we had poured every unspoken thought, every hesitant glance, every burgeoning emotion into its notes and lyrics. It was more than just a song. It was the sonic tapestry of our quiet, unfolding story. Preparations for our debut performance began, a whirlwind of logistical details, late-night rehearsals, and shared nervous excitement. I had booked a small, intimate venue known for its excellent acoustics, a place where the nuances of our music could truly shine. The air in my studio, and even my apartment, now thrummed with a different kind of energy, a vibrant anticipation. I felt a profound sense of transformation. My writer's block was not just gone, it had been utterly vanquished, replaced by a wellspring of inspiration I never knew existed, a direct, undeniable result of Marilyn's presence in my life. She had not merely unblocked me, she had expanded my creative universe. The night of our debut arrived, a vibrant blur of stage lights and eager faces. The small venue was packed, a murmur of excited chatter filling the air. Backstage, the nerves were a tangible thing, a flutter in my stomach that threatened to overwhelm me. I was adjusting my mic, my hands moving slightly unsteadily, when I felt a gentle touch on my arm. Marilyn stood beside me, her violin case resting at her feet. She looked stunning, a picture of poised elegance in a deep indigo dress that shimmered under the backstage lights, her dark hair pulled back in a sophisticated knot. She offered me a soft, reassuring glance, her dark eyes meeting mine. In that silent look, there was a promise of shared strength, a quiet acknowledgement of all we had built, all we had become. It was a silent conversation, a comfort deeper than any words could provide. "Ready?" she murmured, her voice a calm counterpoint to the frantic beating of my heart. I took a deep breath, letting her steady presence ground me. As I'll ever be, I managed a small, genuine smile finally reaching my lips. As we stepped onto the stage, a hush fell over the audience. The stage lights were warm, almost blinding, and for a moment, all I could see were the blurry outlines of faces. Then, I focused on Marilyn, standing beside me, her violin held with a familiar grace. We exchanged one last look, a silent agreement, before the first notes began. The performance was a triumph, not merely for the music itself, but for the story it told. My voice, clear and strong, wove through the intricate melodies Marilyn pulled from her violin. Our individual sounds intertwined, blending into a seamless, emotional whole. The audience was captivated, their attentiveness a tangible presence in the room. Each pause, each crescendo, each delicate harmony was met with a collective breath held, then released. It was an honest, vulnerable, and profoundly beautiful expression of our journey. When the final note faded, leaving a lingering resonance in the air, there was a beat of stunned silence before the applause erupted, a warm, roaring embrace that washed over us. It was overwhelming, exhilarating. We bowed together, the sound of the audience's appreciation a powerful affirmation. In the aftermath, surrounded by well-wishers, congratulations, and the lingering buzz of adrenaline, I caught Marilyn's eye across the small throng of people. Her smile was radiant, her eyes sparkling with a quiet joy. There was a silent acknowledgement of all we'd built, all we'd overcome, all we'd become to each other. I looked at Marilyn, seeing not just a brilliant collaborator or a cherished friend, but the woman who had quietly entered my life, quieted my anxieties, ignited my creativity, and taught me the profound beauty of vulnerability and care. Our future stretched before us, an open-ended melody, full of promise and the quiet understanding that this was only the beginning of our shared song. The final notes of our performance lingered, a soft, enduring echo, hinting at the endless overture that lay ahead, a melody we would continue to compose, together, one beautiful note at a time. The days following our debut performance were a whirlwind, yet beneath the surface of the professional buzz, a profound quiet settled between Marilyn and me. Our success, while thrilling, felt almost secondary to the deeper connection that had blossomed. Reviews were glowing, offers for more performances began to trickle in, and suddenly, the path ahead seemed clear, vibrant. But for me, the most significant change wasn't external, it was internal. My apartment, which had once felt so solitary, now held the lingering scent of Marilyn's perfume, the faint echo of her violin melodies, and the tangible memory of our shared laughter. My creative well was no longer just replenished, it was overflowing. I found myself jotting down lyrics faster than I could keep up, new melodies emerging effortlessly. This wasn't just a professional partnership anymore, it was the foundation of my renewed artistic spirit, a testament to what finding the right resonance could do. One afternoon, a few weeks after the performance, Marilyn and I were back in my studio. Not for rehearsal, but just because. We were sorting through fan mail, laughing at some, deeply touched by others. The atmosphere was light, comfortable, filled with the easy familiarity that comes from spending countless hours together, creating something deeply personal. It's incredible, isn't it? I mused, holding up a letter from a young woman who said our music had helped her through a difficult time. To think we almost didn't even start. Marilyn, who was carefully stacking sheet music, paused and looked at me. Her dark eyes, usually so composed, held a soft, reflective gaze. It was a leap of faith for both of us, Valerie. Especially for you, to approach a stranger like that. A small, knowing smile played on her lips. I remember your hesitation that first night. You were so earnest. A blush crept up my neck, a familiar warmth spreading through me. You were just so captivating. Your music. You. I felt like I had to, even if it meant making a fool of myself. I chuckled, a soft, self-deprecating sound. I hadn't felt that kind of inspiration in ages. You truly reawakened something in me, Marilyn. She set down the stack of music and walked over to where I sat, perching on the edge of my piano bench, facing me. The proximity, even in this casual setting, still sent a gentle hum through me. And you, Valerie, she said, her voice soft, you showed me a different kind of bravery. The courage to be vulnerable, to let someone into your creative process, into your world. She reached out, her fingers gently brushing a stray strand of hair from my cheek. The touch was light, brief, but it brought a pleasant warmth blooming where her fingers had been. You taught me that sometimes, the most beautiful harmonies come from the most unexpected collisions. Her gaze was steady, unwavering, and in that moment, all the unspoken words, all the delicate emotions that had built between us since that hesitant kiss, felt tangible, palpable. There was no need for grand declarations. Our journey had woven a tapestry of shared glances, quiet understandings, and the profound language of our music. We didn't need to define every thread. The pattern was already clear. What do you think comes next for us? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Not just about the music, but about us. Marilyn's smile deepened, a radiant, confident curve of her lips. Her eyes held a sparkle that promised adventure and endless possibility. I think, she said, her voice filled with a quiet certainty. We keep playing. We keep creating. And we see where the music takes us. She paused, her gaze sweeping over my face, lingering on my eyes. And I have a feeling, Valerie, it's going to be a beautiful, long journey. Her words were an invitation, a gentle promise. I met her gaze, a profound sense of peace settling over me. The anxieties that had once plagued me were gone, replaced by a deep, abiding sense of belonging. The quiet, observant part of me had found its expressive counterpart, and in doing so, had found its voice, not just in song, but in care. Our story was still being written, a boundless composition with endless movements, each note a testament to the unexpected connection that had transformed my life. This was our endless overture, and I knew, with every beat of my heart, that I was ready to play on. The hum of life in my studio now carried a different resonance, a richer, fuller harmony. It had been some time since our debut, and the initial whirlwind of excitement had settled into a comfortable, productive rhythm. Our music, infused with the quiet magic we shared, was finding its way to more and more people, but for me, the true triumph wasn't in the accolades, it was in the profound shift within my own heart. I often found myself staring out my studio window, a cup of tea warming my hands, reflecting on the person I used to be. That Valerie, the one haunted by blank pages and a stifling silence, felt like a distant memory, a faint shadow from a past life. The persistent writer's block had been more than just a creative dry spell. It had been a manifestation of deeper emotional baggage, a subtle resistance to vulnerability, a fear of putting myself out there in any true, authentic way. Marilyn, with her quiet strength and the profound honesty of her music, had, without ever explicitly trying, dismantled those walls. Her presence had been a gentle invitation to vulnerability, a subtle nudge towards trust. I learned to let her see not just my polished melodies, but the messy, half-formed thoughts, the insecurities I usually kept hidden. And in return, she offered a mirror, reflecting a strength and beauty I hadn't realized I possessed. There was a quiet healing that happened in our shared moments, in the way she would patiently listen to my ramblings, in the gentle understanding in her eyes when I'd confess a fear, in the profound calm she brought to my often turbulent inner world. It wasn't a dramatic cure, but a gradual mending, like delicate threads being rewoven, stronger than before. Our life together, both professional and personal, had settled into a beautiful, effortless flow. We'd spend mornings sometimes in my studio, sometimes in her cozy apartment filled with books and a surprising number of exotic plants, simply talking, sharing quiet meals, or losing ourselves in the creation of new music. Her apartment always smelled faintly of jasmine and old paper, a comforting scent that now felt inextricably linked to her. Marilyn, the once enigmatic violinist, had become my anchor, my confidant, and the most exquisite muse a songwriter could ever dream of. Her dark hair, whether unbound or elegantly tied back, always seemed to catch the light in a way that drew my gaze. Her hands, so strong and expressive on the violin, were equally gentle when they would briefly brush mine over a shared score or while passing a mug of tea. There were still moments, of course, when the quiet observer in me would retreat, when a flash of insecurity would surface. But now I had Marilyn, and she, with her discerning eye and compassionate spirit, would always notice. She wouldn't push, wouldn't demand, but simply offer a quiet presence, a steady hand. "Just breathe, Valerie," she would murmur sometimes, her voice a soft counterpoint to my internal anxieties. "You're exactly where you're meant to be." Her words, always so simple, always so true, resonated deeply. Our unspoken language had grown richer, filled with nuances only we understood. A look across a room, a shared smile over a quiet joke, the subtle way she would lean into my space when a moment called for it. These were the profound interactions that spoke volumes, far more than any lengthy dialogue ever could. There was a quiet care that ran beneath the surface of our days, not loud or ostentatious, but deep and steady, a profound emotional connection that felt like coming home. I looked at her now, across the studio, as she polished her violin with a soft cloth, the wood gleaming under the light. Her profile was serene, beautiful. This unexpected connection, forged from a moment of desperate inspiration, had blossomed into something enduring, something truly rare. It had taught me that care wasn't just about grand gestures or dramatic declarations. It was in the quiet spaces, the shared vulnerabilities, the patient understanding, and the profound healing that one soul could offer another. Our journey, our music, our story, it was an endless overture, truly. There were no definitive endings, no final chords to be struck. Only new movements to explore, new melodies to compose, hand in hand, heart to heart. And as I watched Marilyn, my heart full, I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that I was ready for every note, every silence, every beautiful, unfolding moment yet to come.